Hi, you're watching Analysis Plan Raya 2008. Yeah? You're with me, Kamaru Barin Harun, and today we're going to talk and focus on sophisticated voters. Are there such voters here in Malaysia? Because in the United States of America, for the US presidential election, that's what they're focusing on, because the fight between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton is so close. They're saying that this group of voters are going to make the difference. What about Malaysia? We're going to have the 24th when we're going to know who we're going to choose, and then there's the 8th of March where we're going to, strike the vote and choose our leaders. So together with me today is Tricia Yeoh, Director for Center for Public Policy Studies of ASLI, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
My first question to you, do we have sophisticated voters here in our country?
I think the question is whether or not the sophisticated voters will actually make an impact on the elections. So we might have a case of a lot of sophisticated voters in the urban areas, but I'm not sure whether these translate into actual votes. You used Barack Obama as an example, comparing the US and Malaysia. Now in the US, you've got truckloads of young people who have come out to register, and you know that the young people are going to vote. In Malaysia, unfortunately, as we know, we have about only 10 million people registered to vote out of our 26 million population. Out of the 4.9 to 5 million unregistered voters, I think about 80% of them belong to the young urban category between 21 and 30 years old. And if we are looking at sophisticated voters being more within the young urban areas, then they all might be sophisticated, but they're not registered to vote. So what would that actually be?
Those who have registered from this group that fits this profile of being young, yappies maybe, young urban professionals, and they are in the urban areas, do you think they make wise decisions? Because at such a young age, they would be idealistic, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be honed by years of looking at the electoral process, looking at all these campaigns, sifting through all the message strategies, and knowing to make the right decisions.
I think, of course, we definitely see a trend towards looking at issues that really matter. So things like freedom of expression, freedom of information. But I'm not sure whether these elections will actually give you a very good indicator of this trend. Not yet. Maybe in the next elections or in the following one. Yeah, that's right. For now, I think Malaysians are still, unfortunately, rather simplistic voters. So you talk about how the old generation vote along the racial lines and religious lines. I think that's something that we still cannot run away from this time.
Even if most of our political parties are based on race, okay, that's a fact. But we do have coalitions like Barisan Nasional, which have the majority of ethnic coming together as a political force. However, when we go down to electorates and look at how people vote, they say that in the urban area, people have not stayed true to that too much nowadays. It doesn't mean that if I'm a Chinese, I'll vote for a Chinese candidate. I also look at the banner of which color and which symbol of party. But most of all, I will give you time and day to listen to the vision that you have to change whatever it is that's, within my area. How would you make something different for me? And as your expertise is in public policies and how it reaches the people and stuff like that, do you think that in like Klang Valley, Penang and Ipoh, very large urban centers, do you think this is the case nowadays where people look at candidates beyond anything else?
It's a good question, but if you look at some of the surveys that have been done, for example, Merdeka Center, doing a bit of advertising for them, as well as a Center for Public Policy Studies study that we did, actually all the voters care about at the end of the day are very bread and butter issues. They care about the rising prices and inflation. They care about crime rates increasing and corruption to a certain extent. They're also concerned about the sort of marginalization of the ethnic minorities. That was the second most priority topic that came out in the study. They do want to see what the party can deliver for them. And so I guess you're asking a question of whether it can go beyond ethnic lines and you look at the party instead. I think to a certain extent, yes. And these elections, although you're looking at the issues, but you see different races, different ethnic groups will look at the issues differently.
Star quoted a research that says that nearly 30% of people that they surveyed wanted economy as the main issue. Whoever solved these problems of oil prices and globalization and the subprime crisis, for example, will get their votes. That's the main issue for them. So if that is the case, that's quite a sophisticated interest, because you need to know a bit about the global world, you need to know a bit about macro and microeconomy. So do you think that that's actually hope for change, even though some other research are also pointing to the contrary?
It depends again on the ethnic group that you belong to. I mean, I don't like to categorize it that way, but that's the way Malaysia works. So if you look at the Chinese, for example, they are very practical voters. They want to know whether the economy is doing well so that they can do their own business and get money and send their children overseas. The Chinese, I think there was a study that was done last year which showed 2 out of 3 Chinese are going to be willing to vote for opposition. Whether or not, it will be for 2 reasons. One is either to punish the sort of coalition government for what they have not seen results, and the second one is because they simply believe more in the opposition. Okay, so that's Chinese. The Indians are traditionally very Barisan Nasional supporters, but in the recent study again shows that their ratings for government and their belief that government can help them economically have really dropped all the way down. So that's quite a worrying trend. The Malays in the urban areas have also indicated a sort of discouraging outlook for the country and the government. So I would say that amongst the Chinese and the Indians, you might see a swing. The Malays, we are not so sure, because although they might not believe in the government handling the economy very well, they're not sure whether the opposition can do the same either. You know, what resources does the opposition have?
At the end of the day, it's about choices, and even if you chose to punish the government because you think that the economy is not running well, but you don't also want a change of government because that doesn't go for stability, and then that will hamper economic considerations too. So how would this swing work? You know, because it's a double-edged sword. That one we'll discuss after this short break.
Ahad. Lihat keindahan dunia, di mana insan dan hidupan lain menikmati keajaibannya, di mana khazanah berharga dijadikan tumpuan umum serta sejarah lampau dihidupkan semula. Tonton Latitudes setiap Ahad jam 1.30 petang hanya di Astro Awani, gerbang dunia kita.
Setiap Isnin hingga Jumaat, pastikan anda bersama saya dan Sria Zainuddin.
Dunia semakin berkembang. The world is developing, the world is changing.
Membincangkan isu-isu berkaitan wanita.
Kau nak kena cari suami yang akan membahagiakan kita.
Kesihatan dan kecantikan.
Menjalani hidup
bersama WW daripada wanita untuk wanita bersama saya dan Sria Zainuddin setiap Isnin hingga Jumaat jam 11.30 pagi di Astro Awani, gerbang dunia kita.
Khamis.
Bersama saya Yasmin Hani dan saya Sezi Palak dalam Ria Central, jendela dunia hiburan anda. Dengan personaliti undangan setiap minggu, dari dunia muzik ke preview filem serta pelbagai info dan acara hiburan terkini. Hadiah-hadiah menarik dan eksklusif setiap minggu, segalanya ada di sini. Ria Central setiap Khamis eksklusif di Astro Ria.
Selasa ini, dinamiknya kehidupan manusia penuh dengan aktiviti dan pelbagai kisah menarik. Warnai hidup anda bersama Living setiap hari Selasa.